Rise and shine, it's espresso time. Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and I am not a morning person. But when you start your day with a powerful routine that inspires you, like watching one of these videos, it can change your life. So let's start your day off right together. Grab your coffee, know that I believe in you, and get ready for a shot of espresso from Brendon Burchard.
I wake up every morning.
Espresso keep me going.
I wake up every morning.
I get up in the morning, I drink 20 ounces of water, I do 20 minutes of mobility, movement, and stretching every morning. Then I read for 20 minutes, something positive. For me, it's almost always a self-help book or a leadership book, almost always. Sometimes a business book, almost always self-help and leadership. Read that book. Then I go and I sit down with my high-performance planner, my green tea. I fill out the day, right? I look at the blocks of time that are already scheduled, and then what I do is my second visualization, which is I look at the major blocks of time that have been scheduled, just like this morning, and I close my eyes, and I think, how do I do that thing with excellence? What would make that thing special? So this morning, before I got here, when I thought about this, because there you go, my high performance planner, impact theory, Tom Bilyeu, oh yes, 3 exclamation points, literally. So I looked at the schedule, I closed my eyes, and I thought, okay, what do I want to communicate on Tom's show? How do I want that to feel? What do I want to communicate? So I literally closed my eyes and I visualized those blocks of time. And how would I do them well? That's a superpower. Most people write their day out, and they just go about the day, and then sometimes they come back to the plan and they go, oh my God, I didn't even do it. Because I sit there and I think about, how do I do that well? That's a game changer.
There are 3 words that are written on my phone. 3 words that every time I open my phone, I unlock it, I see those words on my background. No matter what screen I go to on my phone, there's still those 3 words. Remember your intention. Remember your intention. Remember your intention. I think one of the biggest problems people have, not just entrepreneurs but people, is we don't set an intention, we don't have an intention, we don't know what our intention is. And then for those of us who do, we just don't remember them. We're not consistent in remembering what we're doing and why we're doing it. Like, how many times have you gotten to the end of a day or end of a week and felt like you did so much, but it didn't, nothing seemed to move? You ever got there? You got to the end of the week, it's like it's Friday. It's been a really busy week, but what did I actually get accomplished? And it turns out not a heck of a lot, because there wasn't a lot of intention. I remember meeting Tom and Brendon at an event in Puerto Rico at Brendon's home, and we're actually going to all connect again in Napa coming up soon. And Brendon challenged me on the first day to say, hey, remember why you're here, and you have to ask a question. He says, your problem is you're always giving too much. I mean, it's giving, it's great, it's not too much, but you're always giving, you're always in giving mode. You're always sharing with people how they can grow their channels and have more, you're always sharing. You need to ask. I need you to ask. You have to make sure that you sit here and you ask. So when we do our roundtable, and I was really insecure, there's so many big names at that meeting. That first one was Tom and Lewis Howes and Jay Shetty and Russell Brunson and Dean Graziosi and Brendon Burchard and Jamie Kern-Lima, who just sold their business for $1.3 billion, and all of these highly successful entrepreneurs. I'm sure I'm missing a whole bunch of names. And I felt like, what am I gonna bring to the table? I mean, I'm gonna teach Brendon Burchard how to believe in himself more, right? I mean, it didn't feel like I deserved to be there. And so I was really insecure about it. And Brendon, I got there early, I was the first one there on the first day, and Brendon found me and said, hey, just make sure your intention today is you're gonna give by default, so that's fine, but you need to ask for something. That helped a lot. That shifted my intention away from just being insecure about how to bring value, and also ask, hey, what do I need? What do I actually need out of this? If I had one question that I could ask all these successful entrepreneurs, what would it be? And that allowed me to ask a better question, because I showed up with more intention. And so I want to give you the tools in this video to live a more intentional life, and just try to, nobody's going to be 100% consistent. So how can you stay as consistent as possible? So we're going to look at 3 different phases. There's 3 different versions of it, okay? Step number 1 is an intentional life. So we're looking macro now. What does an intentional life look like for you? What does that mean? When I say intentional life, what does that mean? What kind of life do you want to live? What are your ambitions? What are your aspirations? What are your desires? What are your dreams? What are your goals? What is an intentional life? Like if you could actually plan your life, where do you want to be spending your time? You don't want to be on a beach all day long. You don't. Nobody does. You want to feel like you're doing meaningful work. So what does that look like? What do you look like as a human, as a father, or as a mother, as a husband, as a wife, as a son or a daughter, as an entrepreneur, like all the hats that you wear? What does an intentional life look like for you in terms of the habits that you're doing, right? What does intentionality look like for you? What does success look like for you? And getting clear on that, because when you have a map, it's a lot easier to then start to live it. When you don't know where you're going, you're wandering all over the place. So what is when I say that, what does an intentional life look like to you? What comes to mind for all the different hats that you wear? And the 3 easiest buckets are the relationship, the career or finance, and then your health. Those are usually the 3 buckets that things fall into. So what does an intentional life look like for you? Step number 2 is, what does an intentional calendar look like for you? So now that we have our life ideas in mind, what does that translate to on a daily basis? So for example, in my life, Monday's my mentoring day. I mentor the people that are on my team and that I've invested into their businesses. Tuesday is my YouTube day. Today's a Tuesday, I'm filming. Tuesday, I'm doing all my YouTube stuff. I film videos, I look at my strategy, look at all my content, all the experiments and thumbnails and tests that we're doing, new ideas, that's Tuesday. Wednesday is project day, and I get to pick a project that I want to work on. It might be my book, it might be Movement Makers, it might be Brandlytics, might be whatever project. I could just be creative and spend the day working on that project. I think having forced creativity in little chunks is hard. I think to be creative and to make something special, you need blocks of time. So that's Wednesday. Thursday is my public facing day. That's when I do interviews and podcasts and Skype calls and whatever to help promote the business. People want me on their shows, and so that's all packed on a Thursday. I do my Movement Makers on a Thursday. I do my Brandlytics on a Thursday. I need to show up for the public, so it's extrovert hat on and let's go beat the drum of believe. Friday is my CEO day, and that's where I work on the big projects to grow my business. There's nothing scheduled on a Friday. It's basically big, like Wednesday with the project day, but more like, hey, where am I trying to go? What do I want to accomplish? What's missing in my business, in my life? And just giving me, again, even more freedom instead of structure to think about where I want to go. Saturday is fun day, and Saturday is the day that I spend with Nina, my family, and whatever we want to do. No chores, no admin. It might be hiking, it might be a new restaurant, it might be some festival. Just I'll usually plan an entire Saturday full of fun for us to do. And then Sunday's family admin day. Costco, grocery shopping, cleaning the condo, laundry, like all the stuff you have to do as a human. But it's not on Saturday, right? We're not going grocery shopping on Saturday. Saturday's fun day. And then it all repeats and goes back to the same schedule on Monday. That's an intentional calendar for me. So it's an intentional life of how I want to live, and then the calendar is set up so that if I did these things, will I get closer to achieving the life that I want? Success is the habits. You can have goals, great, but where in your calendar are you actually going to focus on achieving your goals? So when you set up your intentional life, great. Now let's create a calendar so that those things are there. If you have health goals, well, where are you going to be exercising and working out? Where are you going to be spending time to go buy the healthy food and to cook the healthy food that you want to be eating instead of not exercising and eating McDonald's every night, right? Because if it's not in your calendar, you're not going to do it. You can have the best intentions, but if it's not in your calendar, you're not going to do it. So you have to put it in your calendar in a realistic way that you can stick to. And it's possible, we're just not doing it. And so it remains as some goal. I want to make content. I want to make a YouTube channel. Great. Where in your calendar are you spending making YouTube videos? And until it's in your calendar, it's not going to happen consistently. It's going to be too much off the whim of, oh, I just feel like doing it today, so I'm going to do it. If you wait till you have time to do something, you're never going to do it. So you have to schedule it in intentionally. So level 1 of intention is intentional life. Level 2 of intention is an intentional calendar. And then level 3 of intention is an intentional day, and even moment by moment in the day. So before I make videos today, I'll ask myself, what's my intention for this activity? Why is remember your intention on my cell phone? Because I want to start the day looking at my calendar and saying, how do I want to show up? And then when I look at each individual task, I ask myself, how do I want to show up? How do I want to show up for this video? I want to show up inspired. I want to help people believe in themselves more. I want to create one of the best videos I've ever made. I want to have energy. I want to pour light into people. So that's the intention. If you even just talk out the intention before you do the thing, you'll show up better. You'll show up different. You'll show up with that energy that you wanted. Especially when you have to switch to something else. 2:30, I'm going to spend time with my wife, and we're going to go for a walk, take the dogs. Now it's nice sunny day here in Toronto. We're going to go for a walk, and that requires me to switch intention. Then I'm going to switch back to making more videos. Then I'm going to spend more time with Nina over dinner. Then I'm going to spend time with my son. We're going to do some Minecraft. It requires if I'm thinking about YouTube videos while I'm having dinner with Nina or playing Minecraft and hanging out with my son, I'm not present for them. I might be there spending time, but I'm not really there. You can spend hours with somebody watching a movie or lounging watching Netflix, but never actually connect with them, versus a 25-minute walk together could be much more connection than most people have in a week. So in order to do that, you have to switch the gears and just remind yourself, what's my intention for this? And that could take 10 seconds. It doesn't have to be this 30-minute activity every time you switch tasks. Just, how do I want to show up for this? When I have dinner with Nina tonight, how do I want to show up? I'm now making YouTube videos. I'm showing up as Entrepreneur Evan, changing lives, spreading belief, spreading hope, inspiration, positivity, let's go. When I show up for 5 o'clock dinner with my wife, how do I want to show up? I want to show up as a caring husband. I want to be supportive. And just asking myself that question forces me to be a better husband when I show up for dinner, as opposed to still being in YouTube mode. Right? See the difference? And so it's an intentional life, then it's an intentional calendar, and then it's an intentional day, and even intentional moments inside the day. So you can look back and say, I did 5 different things today, and I showed up for all 5 of those as I wanted to show up. And nobody gets it perfect. I still don't get it perfect. But even just the reminder and the aim to get better leads you to having a much more intentional life, successful life, and most importantly, happy life. Now I've got a really special bonus clip that I think you're going to enjoy. But before that, it's time for the question of the day. I want to know, what was your single biggest takeaway from this video and your plan of action for the next week? The science says that when you just watch a video, you get motivated, you get inspired, you have a 35% chance of following through on your goals. 35%! That's not enough. That's not enough just to get motivated. Believe Nation, we're here, you're here. Today matters. You're an action taker. When you commit to a plan of action of when and how you're going to follow through, when you write it down, you have a 91% chance of following through. And when you commit publicly to somebody else, it jumps to 95% chance. From 30-something% to 95% chance of you following through. Believe Nation, we need to make this happen. So question of the day, your single biggest takeaway from this video and your plan of action specific for the next week. Put it down in the comments below, and I'm going to show on screen sometime next week to celebrate you.
Listen, humans are built to serve. Some people are built to serve the world, others want to serve the 25 people closest to them. But in either case, humans are built to serve. So if you're not happy right now, it's because you're not serving enough. You got to pick up this book because it's so inspiring to remind you that we're all here to contribute, to make a difference, to make an impact, and this is your field guide for that.
You don't have and have not developed friendships with other people who you talk to enough who are doing the activities of the dream. And trust me, I know that. Like as a writer, I mean, you guys see me on YouTube and Instagram and like doing videos all the time with our challenges and our courses and our podcasts, oh my God. But I'm more introverted than you think I would be. Like I can go out and just crush it to an arena of 30,000 people all day long, no problem. But then I need to go back and just like not talk to a human for a while. I have a big introverted like part of my life. And as a writer, I would write by myself all the time and I wouldn't collaborate with anyone. I didn't have any friends who were writers. And so I was always impatient. I'm like, is this book ever gonna happen? Am I ever gonna get published? Am I ever gonna have a bestseller? And I was losing patience because I didn't have community. When you have community, like literally friends who you can call and go, you know what, today sucked. I didn't get anything done, I didn't create, or hey, you know what? I'm just not feeling it anymore. I wonder if I should quit. But they're on the path with you. They're like, hey, no, don't quit. hey, listen to that dream that was sown in your heart. Follow that, work for that, earn that. Like having positive friends who are on the same journey is one of the most critical things that people fail to set up. Because when people will say, well, Brendon, but I just don't have any friends, so I guess I'm gonna fail. I'm like, then go make friends. Leave your house. People are like, but I don't know anyone doing this. I'm like, go volunteer for an organization that's doing something related to your dream. Oh, I don't know anybody in my local community who's not a jerk. I'm like, go volunteer. Because guess who volunteers? Good people, giving people, people who want to make a difference, people willing to give their time, money, effort towards good causes. Get around them. And as you're around them, start asking, do you know anyone who does this thing? I just started getting around everybody in volunteer organizations when I was coming up in my 20s, and I would say, hey, do you know anyone who's like a writer, who writes articles or blogs or books and they're like good at it? And these people who I was volunteering with, like, oh yeah, I know this person. Oh, talk to this person. I'd get an introduction, I'd ask them to go out to lunch, and I would just ask them questions. And then we became friends. And the next thing I know, we're going to lunches, we're going to the bar, we're hanging out, and now I'm in that world. When you are in the world of your dream, it's here. You're touching it daily because of your social relationships. So make sure you develop friends who are doing what you want to do. It will carry you through those dark days when otherwise you'd strive by yourself. The first thing you have to do in order to improve your mind is take total control of your attention and notice, where are your thoughts right now? At a very continual basis, you have to think, where are my thoughts right now? Are they supporting me, or are they automatically coming up negative and self-protective in ways that are not advancing my life? Just to be aware, to be conscious of what's going on in your body, in your sense of feeling and emotion, and the sense of the thoughts you're actually having. Just start paying attention. You know, for a lot of people, because they've never done this before and it's hard to remind them to do it, it's like simple. Here's what I want you to do. Just start paying attention to your thoughts anytime you're in line. Anytime you're in line from now on. If you're in line at Starbucks, just say, I'm in line at Starbucks. Brendon said, think about my thoughts. What are my thoughts saying right now? Just checking in. You're in line in traffic, waiting for the next car. Just sit and think, what are my thoughts right now? And just notice what you've been thinking about. The more that we notice what we've been thinking about, the more we can interrupt what we've been thinking about. See, if we just allow that feeling to keep coming up and you don't pay attention to it, our life can be very frazzled and very highly anxious. But once we say, what's my mind on right now? And we redirect it, that is where personal power comes from. First, awareness, right? And understanding and the consciousness to what's going on. But then the ability now to be self-directive, to choose what we want to focus on. So first we're attentive to it, and then redirect it. If it's negative, it's not supporting you, redirect it. How do you redirect it? First and foremost, you just say, what would be the opposite of this negative thing? Then you think about the positive thing and you focus on that and you repeat it to yourself. For many people, that might include closing their eyes, just visualizing a more positive outcome. Thinking about the more positive outcome, thinking about the more positive outcome, thinking about the more positive outcome, focusing on it with their eyes closed. And that visualization of a more positive outcome of how things could turn out well, or how the situation could be better, or even just what are the next steps I should take. Visualizing that and assigning a high amount of importance and duration to it, meaning making that thing important to us by making it, how do you make something important? You give it a sensation. You feel that thing. You sense it. You sense what your next step would be. You sense how it would feel if the outcome would be better. How would it feel emotionally, psychologically, spiritually for that thing to be up? Allow it to have a lot of emotion to it. Pay attention to it. Your eyes closed, you see that thing, you feel it, you sense a different step, you know what you're gonna do, you pay attention to it, and you keep focusing on that, just over a period of minutes. Keep focusing and keep focusing and focusing. When your mind automatically wants to go back to the easy, which might be negative, you go, no, I'm not into easy right now. I'm into conditioning my mind. Focus, 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 focus. Give attention, duration, and sensation to it. Attention, duration, sensation. Attention, duration, sensation. Visualization, visualization, visualization. It's repetition of that positive alternative to a negative impulse that comes up that gives us personal power. Let me say it again. It's that attention to that positive alternative over attention to repeating that negative impulse or thought that gives us personal power. You know, so many people say to me, well, Brendon, I'm wiped out, I'm tired, I wish I had your energy or whatever. I know a lot of people don't want to have my energy, it's too annoying, I get it. But what if we had you tap back into your aliveness again? You know, what if you just chose, not for any reason, not for what emotions come up in your human body, because emotions just come up, right? Your nervous system sometimes, you don't even know why you feel what you feel. Like something can trigger you, a sound, a movement, something someone says, or just your physical body of what you ate a couple hours ago, or how much you slept 3 days ago can catch up to you. And your body and your emotions can kind of go, but we have the saying, the power plant doesn't have energy. It generates energy. What if your dominant frame said, you know, I'm going to focus on my aliveness, and you started cultivating an aliveness in your body and in your mind for no other reason than I said so. No other reason than you decided to. You said, you know what, today I'm going to focus on what's great about me, but I'm also going to focus on being fully alive and engaged and present. And how do you do that? What if you just felt more grateful for the life that you had? You know, look, you're breathing, you're alive. We have this incredible gift that we're all here right now, you know? It's like, I'm here, you're here. What if we took that seriously and we started realizing what a gift it is to be alive, and we allowed ourselves to feel alive, not for any reason. No one made us happy, no one did anything for us. We just felt alive again. And we started asking ourselves on a daily basis, what level of aliveness do I feel in my body right now? Do I feel at a level 0, like dead? Or do I feel like a level 10? I'm fully alive, fully engaged, fully present. And we willed ourselves into feeling more alive every day. It's the number one question I get from all of my work. It's like, wow, you have a lot of energy on what you do. How do you get it? I don't get it. I don't find it. I generate it. The power plant doesn't have energy. It generates it. If you want to feel better about your life, generate more aliveness for no other reason than you choose to. Life should be incredibly valuable to you. If you really value your days, like that day becomes valuable. So because your day is valuable, you get stuff done. You know why a lot of people end up feeling really broke is because they're not valuing their day. They're broke because they added no value to their day. They were reading celebrity gossip magazines. They were screwing around online. They were doing nothing that actually moved the needle in terms of their personal progress and their professional progress. So value this day. You want to make more money? Get serious about tomorrow. Value that day. Ask how you can add more value into the day. Really work the day. And as you do that over and over and over again, you ask, how can I serve? How can I contribute? How can I take it to the next level? You do that long enough, the breakthrough happens, the magic happens, and the money takes care of itself. Most people don't have a calendar. So that's problem number one. They're not strategically blocking time, moving towards the major things they want in their life. They won't say they're going through the motions, but the calendar reveals it. Like if I parachute in their life and I open up their calendar and there's nothing there, they can't possibly say they're living with purpose or intention. And that sounds so flippant to say, but I can't believe how many people, they're not planning their skill set development. They're not planning specific goal attainment on certain dates. So just like their calendar's completely empty and they're hoping it's gonna happen. And it's like, if you look at mine, it's like military-esque like planning. Big biases I had that were wrong. And you're not gonna like this one, and no one's going to like it. But creativity is not strongly correlated with high performance. I would have, 3 years ago, I would argue. I mean, I would have been passionately argued against, because I'm a creative.
Yeah.
This is my life. I write, I train, I speak. That's what I would have argued forever. I've designed all the covers of my books.
Yeah.
I mean, I dork out about design. I design all my web pages. I believe that creativity must give the edge, and it does give an edge in some certain circumstances for sure. But I interviewed a Fortune 50 CTO, Chief Technology Officer. Unbelievably high-performing people. Their stocks off the roof. But what he said, he goes, Brendon, I'm not a creative person. My team isn't particularly creative. But long-term success matters just as much about execution and consistency and showing up as the creative edge. The creative edge might get you in the game, because remember, high performance is long-term success. Mm-hmm. We're not studying initial success. It's very, initial success, grit, creativity, originality, all these things, very important. The spark that gets you in the game, for sure. But even Jim Rohn said, motivation gets you in the game, habits keep you there. And creativity as a habit the spark that might be called original creativity, it might only happen for us every 2 to 3 years. So that's not sufficient. We got to show up on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. Execution is more important, as an example. So we talk about the kinds of creativity that actually matter, but it's not strongly correlated almost across all industries. And I would have completely argued with that. Last night, I'm going on the stage, right? If my identity says I am a public speaker, and it is important for me to be excellent at this, and then I go on stage and I bomb, what does that say about me as a person? So we've got about 50 years of work in psychology, the field of psychology, saying do not tie your efforts to your identity, because that risk of disappointment or rejection, if the task fails, you shouldn't take that as a defining moment in which you say, I am a failure, right? So that's the risk, and that's what psychologists tell us to be wary of. Except, it turns out that high performers flip that on its face and go, well, actually, no, I do get bothered if it fails. I really get upset about it. I am attached to the process here. I do care if it turns out well. I mean, that's why they obsess about the details. That's why they care about excellence. It's like, no one obsesses about the details or cares about excellence unless it means something to them. And there is a risk. The risk is you over-attach to the process or the outcome with your identity, so that if the process or outcome goes bad, now you feel bad about yourself as a human, and now you stop your progress. But I also tell people, there's a balance there. I actually wish more people would attach some identity to what they're doing. They wouldn't go through the motions as much. I mean, I think what the world needs less of is half-interested parents who don't have an identity that says, you know what? I'm gonna be an excellent parent. I think we have a lot of CEOs or business people or entrepreneurs who they've never stepped in and said, you know what? I'm a CEO. I own this business. I am responsible for paying the bills. I am responsible for making the money. I'm responsible for all these people's mortgages who work for me. I want them to own the identity of a CEO. Because most of them, if you ask them about their identity and their business, they're kind of like, you come to find, they're kind of approaching it like not even hobbyists. And it's like, if you want to win, your identity has to be tied into that thing in which you are trying to succeed at and give to. And that takes a lot of guts to put yourself all in for something, but who's ever contributed something with tremendous impact without being all into it? I've never seen it. So I think the message of the book, you're right, I'll get some flack from people, a lot of psychologists say, don't tell people to tie more of their identity. Or my friends who are Buddhists will say, but attachment is the form of all suffering. Brendon, have you not read your spiritual texts? I'm like, look out, calm down. I've hung out with the Dalai Lama. I'm totally cool. But what I'm trying to tell you is even the Dalai Lama has a connection with himself as a spiritual leader. His identity is still there. That people, assume that, we have to release ourselves from having any attachment to something. But I'm like, I think we all want to be present and engaged fully in the things that we are doing in our lives. And that's going to require us to say psychologically, you know what, I am all in this. The habit is generate energy.
Okay.
Not necessarily have energy.
Create energy.
Create energy. And what they do, the way we measure that was kind of academic. Mental energy, which is tied to your focus and your stamina and your ability to manage complex tasks without too much mental stress. Number 2 is emotional energy, which is just the quality of your positive emotions. And number 3 is physical energy. High performers are 40% more likely to work out 5 times per week than the rest of their peers. So that means the top 15% most high-performing people in the world tend to work out 5 days per week. And that workout could be defined as, 45-minute brisk walk or, HIIT intensity or whatever it is, but 40% more likely. That's a huge finding. And what we found is high performers just have better well-being and happiness and physical conditioning than everybody else. One stunning finding was CEOs, senior executives, and business owners, they report expending as much energy as athletes who are competitive now.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. I was surprised by that. I would have thought, athletes would be 10% more.
I mean, the emotional and mental energy
Yeah.
they have to, the decision making, the conversations, the big deals, the stakeness.
Yeah.
It's a lot of energy.
It's a lot. And that's why, if you really want to achieve your dreams, you have to care for your body.
Yeah.
Your mind. That's why all these things, finally resonating in the marketplace, because the science of meditation or taking a break or, managing your own energy, sleep is everything.
Yeah.
And I think all of that is really important. And we say generate energy because there's this myth that, some people have happiness or they have, it's like, no, you generate it. You don't have happiness. You generate it.
Create it, yeah.
You create it. And so the quality of your energy you have to create. Like you and I both, if most of our audience knew our schedules, your schedule the last 5 days, it's like, how is Lewis even able to focus right now?
And how are you able to get here and do this as well?
Yeah. But it's because we say, well, this is our mission. Show up, man.
Yeah,
there's plenty of times I got to imagine you walked on the field and you were like, I'm spent.
Exhausted.
I remember when you flew down to compete in South America.
I still play with the USA team handball
team.
And a year ago, I flew down to, I remember I did an interview in Miami and then flew out from Miami and then just went right into training camp and then played against Brazil, which is Olympic qualifiers, and got our asses whooped, but it was fun, But I had to have clarity and energy to show up, even when I was like, oh, we're going to lose.
Yeah.
Like there's zero chance.
Yeah.
It was like the worst team in the NBA playing like the Warriors, and we were just like, we had no chance.
Yeah.
But I had to show up and give my best. And
you have to set all these routines. The amount of routines that Tom Brady has in his life so that he can generate energy.
It's unbelievable.
Stuns most people.
It's unbelievable.
And that's
what it takes if you want to be at that level. If you don't want to be at that level, you don't have to do it.
Yeah, you don't have to do it. Everybody can just I'm going to go, hit the Cinnabon, but it's like,
it's pretty good.
How do you want to feel at 3:00?
Yes.
If you want to feel amazing at 3:00, don't end lunch with a Cinnabon.
You wrote that achievement is not the problem, alignment is. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I wish it was my line. It was one of my clients. She's, she manages over 10,000 people. Like she has 10,000 direct reports. She's just an unbelievable achiever. And when I started working with her, just like a lot of people, their struggles aren't, can I make a goal list and a checklist and, can I get things done? Because people get stuff done all the time. But our busy work isn't always our life's work. And so you have to learn that we have to find that thing that we can align to. And a lot of people, they're achieving themselves into the wrong thing. They put the ladder against the wrong building. They just haven't really figured out what's important to them. And most importantly, alignment also includes harmony in your life. Because a lot of people achieve in their career and then they're divorced. People achieve, and they're fat and they didn't take care of themselves. And they know it, and it sounds horrible to say it, but they know it. And so you have to figure out okay, how can we align ourselves to something that we really care about? And not align sometimes on a Monday or a Tuesday, or not just in our career, but really get our relationships, our health, our career, all in alignment to help us become high performing. Because high performing isn't just achievement for achievement's sake. I also every morning lay in bed and I visualize what I want. And I see, when I wake up, I literally just lay there for an extra 2, 3, 4 minutes and I just kind of visualize and I'm thinking about the things that I want. So that happens every morning.
Are you willing to share an example?
Actual example. So from age of 20 to 26, probably 90% of the time, I would lay there and I would see myself on stages, big stages. And I would sit there, and as soon as that image came up, I'd freak out. I'd imagine myself walking on a stage with an arena, and I would literally just start sweating in bed. I'd lay there in bed, terrified, just awfully uncomfortable, because that wasn't me. But I was everyone was saying, your car accident story, Brendon, really made a difference in my life. This whole idea of having reverence for life and having, the intention of who you want to be, all these simple things that we talk about in personal development, but I'd share my story with people and think, oh my gosh, you need to teach that. And I was like, oh, I started hearing that. I said, maybe I'll learn to teach, I'll learn to talk. I'll be more expressive, because where I'm from, I grew up in an Irish mining town that had been economically depressed for a century. Men didn't communicate there was no emotional expression. If their hands came above their waist, they were punching you in the face, you know? I mean, it was a very physical and very violent place I grew up in, but there wasn't emotional expression. So I'd lay there and I'd see myself like talking and moving on stage. If you visualize yourself on stage, people watching now or listening now, if you close your eyes and you see yourself on stage, public speaking, with no podium, no notes, to 10,000 people in an arena, most people will get clammy hands and start sweating if you really see it and think about it and feel it and put yourself there for 2 to 3 minutes. I did that for 6 years for 3 to 5 minutes every morning. I'd hear myself saying something. I'd see myself moving. I'd see the audience clapping or jumping up at the end. I'd see myself moving across the stage in ways I never moved. And that visualization created that skill set. Because then I'd go and sometimes I'd wake up and I was like, oh, that was good. And I'd try it out on the carpet. You know, I'd get up and like, oh, I like that. I'd try it out and I'd try it out just in my little dorm room, then my little apartment. And I was always trying things out and I always wanted to get better at it and I always wanted to get better at it. So it just depends. Sometimes it's a specific goal. Like right now, I'm also working on some, major media goals.
You have to be all in, and it's the hardest thing to do because if it fails, then you can feel like a failure. I think of this idea of performance necessity. 2 stories kind of come to mind. One is I was working with an Olympic gold medalist sprinter, and we're in the tunnel and we're going out, and he's talking about the competition, and we get out to the blocks, and I said, he was really worried about the competition. I said, well, how do you even gauge like who's going to win? In his particular race, people are winning, but by 1/100th of a second, tenths of seconds. I mean, these are really close sprints. And I said, well, how do you know? I said, who would you even bet on? And he says, I would bet on the guy who gets down at the blocks, gets himself settled, looks at the finish line, then says, I got to do this for my mom. And I was like, ooh, that's good. His performance necessity in that is, it's necessary for him to win that race for his mom. I think of, when I started my career and I really decided to go all in with writing and online training. This is like 2006. I'd gone broke, completely bankrupt, and failed. I left my corporate job. I had this cushy kind of corporate job as a consultant. Good job. Left it to write. And I didn't know how to make it as a writer. I wanted to do seminars and workshops, didn't know how to do that. So I was pretty much a hot mess, ran out of money. I got nothing to my name, nothing, no positive prospects. No one's calling me except the guys who want the money. And one night I'm writing and the apartment was so small, on the bed I had all, my bills, my vision boards, all my research, all my journals. Like the bed was basically the desk, the extended desk. And my lady comes in, Denise, and she walks past me, but she sees I'm like trying to write. So she doesn't want to disturb me. She crawls under the covers of the bed. And I'm just typing, casually typing away. And I look over and I see my woman sleeping under my bills.
Wow.
And it was just like, because none of us want to see our family suffer because we are not performing.
Sure.
And I was just like, I gotta figure this out. And I'm telling you, I wrote more that night than any night in my entire life. Next day I wrote more than ever. That birthed Life's Golden Ticket, which became a bestseller. And in 18 months later, because I was like, I'm gonna figure out this online thing, I'm gonna figure out marketing, I'm gonna figure out how to teach, I'm gonna figure out how to train and get paid for it, because I'd never really been paid for those things. I said, I'm gonna figure out this industry and I'm gonna make it. 18 months later, after her crawling under the bills, I made $4.6 million.
Jesus.
Online. Total transformation. People are like, how did you do it? I'm like, she was my necessity. I was not going to let my woman be in that situation. And she believed in me, she supported me, she married me. And, but she was my drive. And the second part was I went all in with my identity. I said,
I am going to be a great writer, and I am going to be one of the greatest online trainers there ever was. You know, as you said in the intro now, we've graduated over 2 million people have taken our online courses and video series now. I don't think it would have happened if I hadn't had the guts and maybe the no other choice to say, this is who I'm going to be, and I'm going to build into that. And it is necessary for me to become that person. So let's go.
One of the major keys we found, the first high-performing habit, is seek clarity. And what we found is one of the practices that high performers do is they define the feeling they're after. And so when we had to explain that and later talk about it in the energy chapter, we had to differentiate between feelings and emotions, and they are different. Emotions tend to be, they're the same.
Yeah.
Like they're physical, they're almost always automatic, even though in the brain is creating associations, there's lots to happen. For us, they just kind of,
emotion comes up.
yeah, you're watching a movie and you're just sad and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm crying. You didn't even have the tissues ready. You're just like, blah, but the feelings are usually interpretations that we make of what that emotion was and how it sticks and the meaning we give it to it.
Yeah.
And the example I used to, I like to give, and I don't remember if it's in the book or not, honestly, because here's what's happened. This book is 400 pages. It was 1,481 when I finished.
Baby, you edited.
And it was 1,481 good, complete.
Yes.
Like it was like awesome.
Yes.
But I was like, that's going to freak people out. So we're publishing a bunch in academic journals later and then stripped it down to 400 pages so it's more readable and fun and orientable. So I can't remember if this one actually made it in there, but the example I like to give is if you and I go to a haunted house.
Yeah. Which I love.
I love them. And they scare me the crap. But if you and I walk around, you walk around one of the walls in a haunted house, someone jumps out at you.
Yeah.
You and I are both going to jump.
Yes.
We are emotionally going to experience fright immediately. It's going to be there, right? But I might be freaked out for the next 5 minutes and you might be laughing. Why? It's the meaning and the feeling that we've defined it as. That's fine for everybody. Here's the issue that people have, and you have to be careful about when we start talking about energy, because emotional energy is real.
Yes.
And that is, look, if at 6, like we go to the haunted house at 5 p.m. in the afternoon. If at 9 p.m. now you're in your house, you're alone, but you're completely safe, and you still feel scared, that's not the haunted house's problem. That is the way that you are defining and working through your own emotions. You had the emotion of terror and fear, and you're still experiencing that feeling. That's a mental job, not an emotional job. So your job is to go, wow, I'm at my house. I've lived here for 10 years. I've never been threatened in this house. This is a safe place. I got to redefine the feeling I want to experience. And I work with an Olympic sprinter, gold medalist, Olympic sprinter, as a client. And this person's huge breakthrough in getting better and going from literally won Olympics before, not medaling at all, to now gold. I said, what was the thing?
Yeah.
And one of the things they said to me was, I learned to define the feeling. And I said, what do you mean by that? And he basically said, if there's a bunch of us at the starting blocks and we're all in perfect poise and perfect condition, the one to bet on is the one that says, this is the way I want to feel in this race right now. I know my emotions are going crazy. Like my heart's beating. I can hear everybody. I'm waiting for that shot blast. I can see my goal. I know how important this is. And all these, their emotions are there.
Yeah.
But that person's defining the feeling going, I'm going to feel centered now. I'm going to get myself in the zone now. Even though the emotion of anxiety is there for all Olympic level competitors, all of them. But they define that emotion as a feeling that helps give them a performance edge. And I think that's important too. Bruce Springsteen says if he's ever backstage and doesn't feel like nerves, he's going to hang it up.
Yeah.
But that's anxiety. He's just defining it differently.
So what's the first social habit?
Increase productivity. It's kind of like no duh. High performers are productive dudes. But what the uniqueness is, they're not just pushing more paper or checking more boxes, because I both know a lot of people who their busy work isn't their life's work, so they don't feel fulfilled from their productivity. High performers are fulfilled from what they're accomplishing, which is a big measure. And here's what they did. They identified their primary field of interest, which is a big deal. Then they identified what we call PQO, prolific quality output, which is what's the outputs that matter and get recognized and rewarded the most in this primary field of interest. And then they went all in at it. Mm-hmm. They became almost singular focuses. Like, when Jobs came back to Apple and got rid of all the product lines and said, these are what we're doing, that was prolific quality output. We're going to be prolific quality output on these things, not those. So it's important. Like for me, I thought there was this period of my life where I thought my primary field of interest was personal development. And that's what most of the world knows me for. I've never posted any marketing on my Facebook page in terms of like marketing advice. I teach that. That's way down in my funnel. My YouTube, my podcast, Facebook are all just personal development. So I really identified with that. And then I launched my first book, Life's Golden Ticket, which was my life's message. And it kind of bombed. It had bestseller and then it died, bam, pow.
Yeah.
And it really bummed me out. And I realized why. I said, you know what? I've been thinking my primary field of interest is personal development. And so I did all the book. I read all the books. I went to all the seminars. I, studied with the gurus. I became friends with, Wayne Dyer and Tony Robbins, the big names. That's what I thought it was. And then I had to make a shift. And I shifted my primary field of interest to how to share a message. And it completely shifted. When I started learning, I was like, you know what my primary field of interest needs to be is how to share a message, because I already got the message.
Right.
And then I said, well, what's prolific in this area? Well, what's prolific is what's recognized in this particular area right at that time, which is 2006 and 2007. Online video was just coming in. I mean, YouTube and Facebook were young.
YouTube was like 2004, I think.
Yeah.
Or 2005 or something like
young.
that. Young.
But what's mattering now is video. And I went all in. I've created 13 online courses because in my primary field of interest, sharing that personal development message was everything. So I learned how to share everything. And I went from, kind of a busted first book to in 18 months, 4.6 million in revenue.
Wow.
Because I learned how to sell. And I learned that sharing and selling a message was just as important, because if you don't make the money, you can't sustain the message. I had the message, but I wasn't making any money. I was the poor broke writer dude. And I was So I shifted my primary field of interest and I got to understand marketing. I got to understand business and what's going to be prolific in what I'm doing now. And that's creating products to sell. Oh, I got to create more products, higher quality products. I showed you like my brochures and
beautiful stuff.
Just like super branding, all my books, I did all the covers of all my books and I obsessed about it. I was like the look and the feel and the stuff I didn't care about before. And that changed everything. So what I tell people is if you want to increase, don't just get more stuff done, get more of the right stuff done and really go in on it. I mean, super obsessed about the quality and really focus. It's that old saying, the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, you very careful what your main thing is.
The big, huge finding that really scratches the surface of a lot of like cultural assumptions, especially in high performance, is this big cultural conversation we have about strengths. And, find your strengths, follow your strengths. The strengths are everything. And, take the strengths finder, figure out your top 5 strengths, follow those, don't do anything else. Or, at least know what they are and really aim your career to that, or aim your behavior towards that, or use that as a guide for recognizing pattern. And by the way, I'm all for that. That's all great. I'm that guy who says, any self-reflection you do, I'm cheering you on. Like any assessment, any tool that makes you look at within inside, I'm like all for it. It's just that strengths are not highly correlated with long-term success. Right? There's not a lot of data and there is not a lot of research that has shown it leads to long-term success with the positive outcomes associated with what we care about in psychology, which is we care about happiness, we care about health, and we care about your positive relationships. And this myth that, we'll just follow our strengths to the promised land is just not true when you actually talk with high performers. Because my favorite question, and if anyone's down this, just go up to anyone who's good and say, were you always good at that? And they'll be like, no. They'll be like, not at all. Like, well, did you always have an inclination to do every element of where you're doing really well? No. Like me? Man, I sucked on stage. This year I've talked to 60,000 people live. This is really important because
this idea that our strengths are going to give us everything. It's just not true. I sucked speaking on stage. Matter of fact, I was terrified of it. Terrified. But one reason I love your show is because I had that intention of, I want to make an impact. And when someone actually asks and kind of owns that, like when they say, do I want to make an impact? And the answer is yes, and they own it. They realize they're going to have to develop. They can no longer leave their growth to randomness, because if they do, they'll always be mediocre. And they realize, I got to become something entirely above both of those. That's what most people don't see. They're like, we made this binary false conversation, right? It's not a true sort of choice here. It's a false dichotomy, we call it, right? It's not strengths or weaknesses. Many of you, if you have a big dream, a huge goal, you got to become something entirely above and beyond any strengths you even know about, feel, or own, and go way beyond any weaknesses you've ever even addressed or even you know about, because you're going to discover so many new strengths and so many new weaknesses on the path that it's almost irrelevant what they are now. It's what's the goal and build into that. I didn't know how to write. I get a lot of critics who are like literary guys about my books because every book is different, right? 6 books, all of them different. And the reason they all read differently is I am challenging myself as a writer to develop, to get better. Every book I write, I'm going to write this like nothing I've ever written before. And I go to work at building a new skill set to be able to write. Like Manifesto, I researched for 2.5 years just how to write it.
Wow.
Not what to write, how. How do I get that pentameter? What was the rhythm in which revolutionist rhetoric was spoken in or written in? Just to understand that took me 2.5 years. So I had no conceptual understanding of it. It wasn't a strength. It wasn't on my radar. Make small changes and see themselves making those changes. And then integrate that into their identity. Integration, if you heard me talk about it, it's a big topic in high performance. It's one of the reasons successful people often don't feel like successful people, or successful people don't feel confident because they've never integrated the wins, the W-I-N-S, wins. They've had a lot of wins in their life, but they never stopped and said, wow, I really appreciate that I got a little better today. I really appreciate that. Putting myself out there. I'm proud of myself for trying here. You know what? I am a little stronger because I did that thing. To acknowledge that you've gained some strength is everything to confidence, isn't it? Write it down. To acknowledge that you gained some strength. Look, if you had 2 kids and you survived, you've gained some strength. You get a little more confidence in life. I mean, come on. What else do you have to be through? If you've already made some money in your business, but it's always more, and you never stop to go, wow, I really came from nothing. I made some money here. And you never integrated the win in your identity stays the same level over here, even though you've actually accomplished a lot over here. And I see that all the time. It's why I see people who are the same level of confidence in their 20s and 30s, and now they're 50 and 60 leading other people, but they're completely racked with insecurity every night. They feel like crap. They don't know what they're doing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you should have so much more confidence. You should feel good about yourself. Integrate some of these wins. 4-day event. And it's just me. I usually have 1 or 2 big names come in, but it's me 12 hours a day, 4 days,
Teaching.
and I never sit down.
High energy.
I never sit down on stage. And super high energy. I mean, really going for it. Not just the clapping and the jumping, but really just spending heart. You know how hard it is.
Of course.
And I had to, about the same time, when I was 35, I had a famous strength and conditioning coach backstage. He works with me and Usher. And he's like, what do you eat back here? And, another guy came in and strapped the heart rate monitor machine. He goes, I'm equivalently working out at the marathon level every day for 4 days. They're like, you're not eating. I was losing on average 11 pounds in my seminars. And I do 8 events a year. So I was losing 88 pounds a year. It was like, it's horrible for your health. So I had to learn how to eat. I had to learn I do ice baths every night at my events, which
smart.
No one loves to do that.
Here's the thing. I used to do it every day in football, like during the season.
Yeah.
And it sucks for the first month, but then you start to love it.
Yes. Yeah. I have to do it.
You know what I mean? It's like, you just start to, it feels so good. So.
Feels so good. After stage, it's like 12 hours. So those are no one says I want a habit of taking an ice bath at the end of the day. But if I want to be high performing on stage, that's the choice.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, people listening, consult your doctor.
Of course, yeah. And only do it for 10 minutes. Don't stay in for a half hour. Yeah.
Right. So, but all those things you have to. So, what are your habits for energy? And the funny thing is, you sit down with high performers, they know them. They can tell you, I do this, and you're like, man, you're on your game.
I need to do a good job here, and I'm motivated by that, not scared by that.
Yeah.
It's a perfect little connection. There's a whole chapter on it in the book. And what often happens for people is that emotional thing we were talking about earlier, like that emotion of anxiety is that they're using that to raise their necessity to do better. They're like, I'm going to use this feeling I have and transform it to do better.
Yes.
Even though everyone else would identify that same emotion as I'm scared, they're going to say, this feeling is going to make me focus. This feeling that I want to have right now, I'm going to put my A game on.
Yep.
And it's so cool because all the high performers I interviewed, over 300 literally verified high performers. We use objective measures, whether they're highest performing in their company or whether they fill out the high performance indicator. And we have this assessment now that can basically show you're probably a high performer if you score in these areas, in these 6 different habits. And interviewed over 300 of them, and every one of them at some point in the interview, and these are structured academic interviews, so they're way less fun than this. And so, sorry for everyone who I interviewed, but boy, it's just different. And what I found out was every one of them talked about that at some point. Taking what they were experiencing and transforming it into something that gave them performance edge. Whether it's an artist readying themselves to touch the canvas, like there's a thing that says, I want to be a great artist. I want to do a great job. And that self-talk is leveling up our necessity. Lots of people have amazing strengths, but they don't get off the couch because they don't feel it's necessary to win, necessary to succeed, necessary to serve. And high performers feel like it is necessary that I show up today, I do a good job, I help others. Sometimes some answer it in the spiritual realm. They say, I feel called to do this. I feel it is my mission. I feel God has given me these gifts and I don't want to waste that. And that for them is a very spiritual, emotional connection to it's necessary for me to kick some butt, do well, deliver. Other people, they really got to mentally get themselves in that. I'm a little in between. I have to say things to myself before I walk into a situation to make me better. Like before I came through those doors, you have a bathroom out there, and I went in the bathroom and I do a little self-talk to myself and I bounce in place and I take 10 deep breaths and I'm talking to myself so that I'm ready.
Reveal uncertainty. This one is the opposite dynamic of how I used to think of confidence, right? We think of confident people as people who are just like, it's like Wonder Woman, right, is confident. We think of Superman is confident, who just knows everything. Really what it turns out to be, high performers are listen to this, high performers are a lot less Superman and a lot more Clark Kent. That's what it turned to be. In all of the research, with millions of data points, in all of my conversations, high performers were much more likely to reveal things like, I don't know. Things like, I'm unsure. Things like, how do you think this should go? Things like, could you kind of help me with this? Like high performers literally explicitly share that they don't know how it's going, they don't know how it's supposed to go, that they need some help, that they need some mentorship, that they need some guidance. That's confidence. Confidence is not holding back the deck of cards of your weaknesses. Confidence is a comfort with vulnerability. And when people say vulnerability, they often don't know what they mean. When we're talking about vulnerability, specifically related to confidence and high performance, like measurable outcomes, the thing that we can measure and see is that high performers in group meetings, in team meetings, in social situations, more often share their insecurity. They more often say, I don't know how this is supposed to go. Or, they'll be the person, at that fruit punch bowl who says, I don't really know anybody here. I don't really know how to start to meet some of these people. Could you introduce me to somebody? And that's how they handle the social networking, where they're awkward. They instead of just sitting back at the punch bowl, drowning their sorrows and feeling bad about themselves, they engage the person next to them and say, hey, you know what? I feel kind of awkward here. I don't know a lot of people. Could you introduce me? That's how high performers are handling little situations in life. They're not the most confident person in the meeting who goes, I know everything here. They're the most confident going, you know what? I don't know this. Here's my question. What do you guys think? And that is how you lead confidently. You reveal that you don't know everything.
Know your why is nice. Know your why and give yourself edge for it.
What do you mean?
Let me give you an example. 2 guys walking out on the track field. Who's going to win? Well, equal quality of experience, similar times, maybe they've raced before. The guy at the blocks who I'm going to bet on is the guy who came out and said, got to do this for my mom. They have a reason to perform at heightened levels. And they have connected to that over and over. Now, again, some of this, Brendon. But the finding, the research is they just do that more often than underperformers or even, good performers.
Yeah.
They're more connected to their reasons why, and they're stirring it, man. It's like, and they do it from 2 angles. One angle is your internal standards. Like my values or my self-expectations say, I got to crush this because that's who I frickin' am.
Yeah.
Like when you walk out, you're like, you're not going to, screw around on when you're playing handball. You're like, this is who I'm Lewis. I'm an athlete.
Yeah.
I'm going to kick some ass here.
Yeah.
It's that self expectation. Okay. Then though, they pair it with external obligation. Like my team needs me to do this. The deadline says this time. There's some kind of external, they don't call it pressure.
My family, something bigger than themselves.
Something bigger than themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was another thing I was surprised by. They don't say, they rarely use the word pressure because they want it. Like people who use pressure, they don't want it. But high performers, I found they're connected. I'm doing this for a bigger cause, a bigger reason, a team. Or there's sometimes just like deadline. Like I'm an unbelievably high performing writer when there's a deadline.
Yeah,
I'm a weapon, right? Before that, I'm not always on my game.
Sure.
So, but if you have those reasons, so you got to have your internal reasons and your external reasons, and then your job is remind yourself of that more often.
Passion plus growth plus contribution equals personal satisfaction.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like those all coming together, a lot of people have never experienced. And it's hard for you and I to say that as personal development guys, but it's true. There's a lot of people who have never had those 3 completely line up, so they're not satisfied even with their job or their career or their life, because the passion isn't there. Even if the passion's there, they don't feel like they're growing. But everybody who I talk to, do you remember that first personal development book you read? Do you remember that first time you wrote tons of notes about what you wanted your life to be about? Do you remember that first time you watched a movie that inspired you to go change? There was fire there because that learning, it opened up your mind to a new level of existence for you. And as soon as you saw it, you were like, ooh, ambition hit your heart. And now if you can match it with contribution and you can see how that passion or that fire or that learning or that growth all aligns to some type of impact, now you're getting me fired up. Because now I can see the outcome of all the work. A lot of people don't do the work because they don't believe the outcome.
That's interesting.
And psychologists talk about the power of expectancy. When we talk about motivation, there's only 2 things that spark motivation. One is ambition, and that is I want more of or I want a greater depth of, right? I want a greater depth of connection with my lady. That's ambition. Or I want a better meditative practice. That's ambition. Right? I want to be better at my job. That's ambition. So it starts with ambition. But ambition, if it's not coupled with what they call expectancy in psychology, you're screwed. Expectancy says, I believe that I can figure that out. I believe that I can achieve that. I believe that that is possible for me. Because if we don't believe it's possible for me, you can show them all the results from 1,000 people. Right? How many people say, I want to get in great shape? I'm gonna do ketosis. I'm doing the ketosis thing, man. And they hop on your Instagram and they see the cuts, they see the changes, they see the transformations, but they don't believe it's possible for them. So they don't try. Expectancy is their problem. You got to bust through the beliefs to get them to understand that it is possible for them, not for other people, for them. And if you can open that gate for somebody, and often that's only achieved through learning, then you get somebody who starts really moving ahead forward. I mean, really moving ahead. Like the second they go, wait, that's possible for me, they'll try 50 stupid things, right? They'll try anything.
But if they don't believe it's possible for them, they'll just quit.
If you're in this place where you really feel like you're struggling, but you're like, I'm working so hard. I would say what she said to me, achievement is not the problem, alignment is. Once we got her aligned, I mean, her life came back. I mean, literally, this person felt like their life was a waste, like they had spent 20 years doing something that wasn't the right thing. And there was a lot of guilt and shame and frustration there. But I'm like, but she didn't feel right because she wasn't in alignment. As soon as we got her in alignment, I mean, literally weeks, she changed. I mean, you would have thought she had, some renaissance of the mind, and it wasn't that many things. Just sometimes you're actually not off by 50 feet like you think you are. You're off by like 4 or 5 degrees. And if we can align your relationships, your career, and your health back into the right angle for you, you come back alive.
If you want another amazing Brendon Burchard video, check it out right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
The journey to greatness begins the moment that our, deep desires for comfort and ease are overpowered by our desires to connect and contribute.